No, I think we're okay. Good evening and welcome to the session. We'll be starting in just a few moments.
Good evening for those of you who are joining. We're going to give it just a few minutes to see if we can get a few more people to join, and then we'll get started with the Homebuyer education course. So folks, we're just going to give it a few more minutes and we will start the presentation at 6:05. It's just 6:02 at the moment. So we'll give it a few more minutes for a few more people to join us if we can, and then we'll be on our way. So thanks for your patience. So good evening, everybody. We're going to give it just another minute, see if we get any other people to join, and then we'll get started. Okay, so good evening. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is Tom Hodges. I'm the VP of Development here at the ski area in the planning department. And we welcome you here this evening to enjoy this homebuyer education course that's going to be presented by Patricia Robertson, who is the Executive Director of Mammoth Lakes Housing. And we wanted to give you guys a little bit of information here with the interface of the presentation. There are icons up in the sort of upper right-hand side of the menu bar, and one of those has got a little question mark caption on it, and that's the questions and answers. So if you have questions during the course of the presentation, please type them as we go, and then we'll be monitoring those, and we'll do our best to answer them, you know, while we're addressing that content. So so feel free to enter questions as we move through the presentation. That's the only way to actually ask a question during the presentation. It doesn't allow for live voice. And I guess the other thing I wanted to also, Patricia's going to jump in here in a minute, and there's also the ability to create Spanish subtitles, and she's going to explain that when she starts the presentation to everybody. And then the other thing I wanted to say up front is, you know, as this presentation, it should be 45 minutes to an hour. And, you know, at the conclusion of this, if any of you have questions, you know, certainly feel free to reach out to me and or Patricia, but me at the Mountain, Tom Hodges in the planning department, on the email, and my office is in the main lodge. And I'm happy to meet with you individually if you'd like, if you've got further questions. You know, not that I'm an investment manager of any sort, but you know, I've bought and sold a few properties in my life and in my career at the Mountain, and so I have a pretty good understanding of how everything works, and I'm certainly willing to help you out and do my best to give you at least my perspective on something if you have questions of what, you know, if you want some advice. So anyway, I just want to make that offer to everybody up front, and feel free to contact me, you know, any point after this, you know, in the coming days and weeks and months. So my door's open, and I'm happy to talk with you. So with that, I'm going to introduce Patricia Robertson, the Executive Director of Mammoth Lakes Housing, and let her take it from here.
Great, thank you, Tom. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to start. I wanted to start the presentation to make sure everyone knew how to put on the closed captioning if they needed it, and subtitles if they needed it. And so, buenos tardes a todos aquellos participantes que hablan español. Aquí tenemos las direcciones para activar los subtítulos en español. Hay un botón que dice CC en el derecho de la pantalla, y entonces podemos seleccionar español si necesita subtítulos en español. Gracias. Thanks again to Tom Hodges for inviting me to provide this homebuyer education class. It's a class that we have historically taught usually about twice annually, free to the community, but this is the first time that I have been able to give this class to employees of Mammoth Mountain specifically. So it's exciting to be here and to know that there is a large audience of local residents that are excited to learn more about homeownership. As Tom mentioned, he is the VP of Development for Mammoth Mountain Ski Area, but he's also a board member for our nonprofit, Mammoth Lakes Housing. And so he serves on our 9-member board of directors to help make decisions about housing programs and projects that Mammoth Lakes Housing is working on in the community. As Tom mentioned, I'm Patricia Robertson, and I'm the Executive Director of Mammoth Lakes Housing, a California Realtor, which helps me in the work that we do for housing in the community. I've been in Mammoth for 10 years, and I'm a previously certified level 1 snowboard instructor. I never did teach at Mammoth Mountain, but teaching snowboarding was certainly one of my favorite jobs I've ever had. So I'm definitely an active member in the community, and obviously love being able to live, work, and play here. I just wanted to touch a little bit on our nonprofit, Mammoth Lakes Housing, and the work that we do. We're coming up on our 20th anniversary. We are a nonprofit organization. We have 2 full-time staff persons, and we're a licensed real estate brokerage. We work in Inyo, Alpine, and Mono counties, and so that includes the city of Bishop and Mammoth Lakes. And we do grant administration with those jurisdictions. We provide different programs such as mortgage assistance programs. We also provide stewardship for a land trust model, which I'll talk a little bit more about later in the presentation. We're a state certified community housing development organization, and we have a 20-year history of providing affordable housing in Mammoth Lakes. Our current project is an 11-unit multifamily apartment project where we're converting a commercial property into a residential affordable housing project. So that's a big project we're working on in Mammoth Lakes. In this homeownership course, we'll really just be providing an overview of the process of how you might go about becoming a first-time homebuyer. And so there are some calculations that you should be aware of that will help you calculate how much you can afford for a home, the benefits of comparing different mortgage products. We'll talk about some of the programs that Mammoth Lakes Housing offers. And then we'll kind of go through the process of finding, we shouldn't call it the perfect home, but finding the right home for you, how to make an offer, and close on your first home. So diving right in, obviously we all want to know how much we can afford when we are looking at real estate. And what you can afford depends on a number of things, including your income, how many expenses you maybe already have, how much savings you have for a down payment, your credit score, and the interest rate that your lender is willing to give you on your mortgage loan. All of those things will impact how much money you can borrow. One of the #1 questions we get asked at Mammoth Lakes Housing is, what is affordable? And how much should I be spending on housing? What does this term affordable housing mean? And there's a lot of different ways to think about that, but the most straightforward one is that the federal government definition of affordability is that a household should not be spending more than 30% of their gross monthly income on their housing expenses. So that doesn't include utilities, but it would include rent, your mortgage, your HOA, your homeowner's insurance. So to be federally recognized as affordable, your rent should not be more than 30% of your gross monthly income, and your mortgage shouldn't either. If you do pay more than 30% of your income on housing, then that household is considered cost burden and may have difficulty affording other things. And I think we experience this a lot. Healthcare, transportation expenses like car maintenance and gas, sometimes food and clothing, that could all be compromised if you spend more than 30% of your income on housing. And I think, especially in California, we know that many households pay more than 30% and a lot of times more than 50% of their income on housing. And that is part of the reason why Mammoth Lakes Housing works so hard to provide programs and affordable housing for our community. So here are just some of the things that would be counted towards your income when you're looking at that affordability calculation. And these are the types of income that a lender would be looking at, and also that Mammoth Lakes Housing would be looking at if you were applying to some of our programs. So overtime cannot be counted towards your gross income unless it's earned regularly and you have documentation of that for at least 2 years. Sometimes lenders will require more than 2 years. Bonuses would be the same. So if you receive an annual bonus and you can document that for at least 2 years, then that can be counted as income. However, if you only received a bonus one time, then that likely would not be able to be counted towards your income. Commission also needs a 2-year history of documented income. And the same with self-employment. Child support is tricky. It can be counted as income if you have a history of regular payments. However, if the payments are sporadic or you're having difficulty receiving your child support payments, then it may be difficult to include that as income. The other thing that a lender and we at Mammoth Lakes Housing would look at for our programs is your monthly expenses. So if you already have a lot of monthly expenses, then your ability to borrow more money will be compromised. So here a lender would look at your potential mortgage payment. So that includes the principal, the interest, the taxes, and the insurance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. If you have credit card payments that you're making, loans like student loans or car loans or other loans, loans that maybe you co-signed for that aren't really yours, but you've signed up to say that you'll be responsible if that other party doesn't pay, those would be counted as debt potentially. If you owe child support, it's also counted as debt. But what's not included in monthly expenses are utility bills, phone bills, things like car insurance and childcare. Those are not counted as monthly expenses, even though we all know those also take up a lot of our income. So these are the calculations that mortgage lender and Mammoth Lakes Housing would look at while determining if your household is eligible to take on additional debt. There's a front-end ratio, which is what you'll be spending on your housing expenses. And then the back-end ratio is all of your monthly debt plus your housing expenses. And so there are certain limits to what lenders would like to see you spend on housing and on total debt. And they use these calculations to determine if they would be willing to lend you a mortgage. A front-end ratio for Mammoth Lakes Housing that would be acceptable would be spending between 25 and 35% of your gross monthly income on housing. And at Mammoth Lakes Housing, for a back end, we don't like to see our clients spending more than 45% of their gross monthly income on debt. That includes the housing debt as well as the other monthly debt that we talked about. And so here's just an example. I like to provide some numbers for those folks who are visual and would like to maybe play with some of these numbers on their own. But here's an example of how you would calculate the front end ratio, which is the housing debt. You would take your mortgage or your rent, and then you would divide that by your gross monthly income. to get a ratio. And in this example, this person is proposing to spend 34% of their gross monthly income on their housing expenses, which, remember, it does not include utilities. And then you'll see the back end ratio, which is all of the debt. And you'll see it includes the housing debt. They also have a car payment and a credit card. And so their back end ratio is all of their monthly debt divided by their gross monthly income. And their back end debt ratio is 44%. So both of these ratios are at the high end limit of what Mammoth Lakes Housing would accept for our programs, but still within the requirements. In mortgage lending, you'll hear this term a lot, PITI, and that is what is all included in your mortgage payment. And so that includes the principal and interest on your mortgage loan, and also your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance. And these things are all wrapped up into your mortgage and part of your monthly payment, and your monthly payment is then paid out to all those sources by your mortgage servicer. We always get a lot of questions about how much you need for a down payment. We always recommend that more money for your down payment is better. It makes it so that you have to borrow less, which is always good. But it can also help lower your interest rate. If you have less than 20% of the purchase price for a down payment, your lender will require that you pay mortgage insurance. And this mortgage insurance is an additional cost to you, which is typically 1% of the purchase price divided by 12. So it's an extra couple of $100 per month that goes to make the mortgage lender feel better about this loan that they made you that was maybe a little bit risky because you put less than 20% into the deal. Some lenders want to see that your down payment has been seasoned, or that you've been working to save your down payment for at least 3 months in the bank. Others don't, and sometimes your down payment can be a gift or a lump sum from a family member or somebody who wants to help contribute to your goal of homeownership, and lenders may treat that differently. So it's always good to talk to a couple of different lenders to make sure you can find the one that's willing to work with you the best. We haven't had a lot of questions lately about credit scores, but it's always an important component about regarding, seeking a mortgage and determining what interest rates you will be able to achieve based on your credit score. And so a good credit score, a very, very good credit score, which signifies to a lender that you're low risk, is obviously in the 800s. If you have a very low credit score in the 3 or 4 or even 5s, a lender might think that you're more high risk, and if you are able to obtain a loan, then the interest rate will be higher. Some things to think about when you're thinking about your credit score is there's different ways that your credit score is calculated. And so one thing that they take into consideration is your history of on-time payments for debt that you might already have. So if you don't have a history, a credit history, that can be worrisome for a lender because they're not sure if they can trust you with a loan. Another thing that's calculated into your credit score is the length of your credit history. If you've had a lot of recent inquiries, so if you are looking for a car loan and you went to 5 different used car places, and at each place you tried to get pre-qualified for a loan, and that would drop your credit score because you had so many inquiries all at one time. And then another thing that factors into your credit score is different types of credit. So a credit card is one type of credit, a car loan is another type of credit, a home loan is another type of credit. So having various types of credit is a benefit to your credit score. And then obviously, as I mentioned, it's important to work on your credit score so that you can be eligible for a mortgage loan if you're looking to buy a home, and also achieve a low interest rate. Right now, our clients are seeing mortgage interest rates around 3.5%, I would say 4% for those maybe with lower credit scores. But interest rates are always changing, and different programs may have different interest rates, and so that's another reason to reach out to a couple of different lenders when you're shopping for a mortgage. Here's just a couple of ways that you can work to repair your credit. It's not easy and it takes time, but it's certainly worthwhile if you're looking to be a home buyer. And so it's good to review your credit report annually, and you can request a free credit report from freecreditreport.com. You can also use Credit Karma to monitor your credit, if it's going up or if it's going down. If you're making late payments, start making them on time. If you have a lot of credit cards, which is what I mentioned earlier, if you have a lot of the same types of credit, so say you have a lot of credit cards, that can lower your score. So you could close a few of those cards, but maintain your oldest accounts, because your credit history is also very important. So close the newer accounts. And then this might be something you didn't know, but if you have you have this credit card and they gave you a $30,000 limit, because sometimes they do that, and you think, I should just go out and spend $29,000 on this credit card. Actually, if you spend only 30% of your credit limit, that will reflect well on your credit score. But if you spend more than 30% of your limit and you're getting close to 100% of the limit, then that will drop your credit score. If you have good credit, try to avoid opening a lot of new accounts, because that could potentially, and it will, impact your score. And then if you don't have any credit, that's okay. You know, we're not just born with credit scores, right? We all have to figure out how to get one. And there's ways you can start to build your credit. You can utilize a secured credit card. I know that Alta One Credit Union in Bishop has a secured credit card. It's almost like borrowing money from yourself, but then Alta One Credit Union will report that you're making on-time payments to the credit bureaus, and that will help improve your score. Also, sometimes it's a little easier to get like a gas credit card or a car loan. Sometimes it's easy to get a car loan, and so those are a few ways you could try to start building a credit score. Tom, I'll just take a quick breath and see if there's any questions.
We have no questions so far.
Okay, great. In this next section, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about types of mortgages, different payment structures, what documents you'll need to bring to a lender to get pre-approved, and sort of the process of how to work with a lender to get pre-approved for a mortgage. So as I mentioned, there are lots of different types of mortgages and also programs for first-time home buyers. So it's really good to ask questions when you're talking with a mortgage lender and make sure you're getting all the information that you need. So here's just some different types of mortgages. There's conventional loans, loans through the federal government, through the USDA. There's veterans loans. So there's all different kinds of loan structures and programs out there. And so it's important to find the right one that's going to work for you. There's also a lot of different ways your mortgage can be structured. Could be a 15-year loan or a 30-year loan. It could be a fixed rate loan, so a fixed interest rate. It could be a loan where you make really small payments every month, and then at the end of the term in 30 years, you just owe all of it all at once. It could be where you just pay the interest for a certain amount of time. The interest rate could change at certain intervals during the loan, all different structures. And so that's why it's important to ask lots of questions and make sure you're getting the right mortgage for you. And so we'll talk a little bit more about the programs that Mammoth Lakes Housing has, but if you do or are eligible to participate in our programs, your primary mortgage with your lender must meet a specific structure, and it must be a 30-year fixed rate loan with no balloon payments, and it must have an impound account, which means that your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance are included in your mortgage payment. And that's a way for Mammoth Lakes Housing to ensure that our clients don't get hit with a property tax bill for $2,500 that they didn't know was coming, and maybe they don't have the money up front, and then they're delinquent on their taxes. So it's just a way to make sure that our first-time homebuyer clients are making small payments as part of their mortgage towards their property taxes and their homeowner's insurance. I just briefly want to mention that sometimes your mortgage is operated by a loan servicing company, and you pay you pay your monthly bill to the servicing company, and then sometimes that servicing company can change. And so this is just a note about how your mortgage payments get collected by the servicer and then dispersed to pay down the loan, to pay your property taxes, and to pay your homeowner's insurance. Fair housing is really important and part of mortgage lending. Everybody should have equal opportunity to access housing and mortgage lending. And so there's specific laws regarding lenders and the information that they must give you in order to make sure you are well informed before you sign up for a mortgage. I think that's all I'll say about that, but if you have questions, I'm always available to talk more about that. Here are the documents that your lender and Mammoth Lakes Housing, if you would like to work with us, will need to review to document your income and your ability to repay a loan. You might need the last 2 or 3 years of your federal tax returns, 3 months of your pay stubs, and for Mammoth Lakes Housing, that includes everyone who's over 18 who's going to be living in the household. So we look at gross household income. And sometimes that's different than what your lender will be looking at. We'll also need to see 6 months of all your checking account statements and the most current month of your savings. And your lender will need to see your ID as well. And so the lender will compile all of that income information, run the numbers on your housing and debt ratios. We'll check your credit score and determine if they are willing to make you a loan. And then they'll provide you with a brief letter stating how much they think they would be willing to lend you, the approximate interest rate, and description, maybe a short description of the loan product. And this is your pre-approval letter. It's not a binding document, and it's, you know, those numbers could change, but this is a document that Mammoth Housing will need to see as part of your application for our homeownership programs. Here's some of the programs that Mammoth Housing works on. So we currently have down payment assistance available to help low-income households purchase a home in Mono County. We're currently waiting on a grant for down payment assistance in the town of Mammoth Lakes. We also operate our land trust below market rate ownership opportunities in the town of Mammoth Lakes. That's our deed restricted home ownership program. We have about 40 homes that are priced below market value that we provide stewardship of. And when those opportunities come up for the community to purchase, we usually have a waiting list. So you can always reach out to us if you'd like to apply for that program. Or sign up for our newsletter, because if we don't have a waiting list, we always advertise our available units through our newsletter. This is a little bit more about the current program that we're currently operating in Mono County. So that's outside of the town of Mammoth Lakes. That could include Walker, Bridgeport, Lee Vining, June Lake, Crowley Lake, Chalfont, any of those communities, not the town of Mammoth Lakes. So the current program that we have is for households earning below 80% of the area median income. And there's some examples there. It's based on household size. Household means anybody who's occupying the home or will be occupying the home that you're planning to purchase. You'll have to show your pre-qualification letter from a lender. And we can loan households up to a maximum of 49% of total indebtedness, which means that we cannot loan you more than what your primary lender has pre-qualified you for. So if your primary lender says, we looked at your income, we looked at your credit score, we are willing to loan you $200,000, Mammoth Lakes Housing in Mono County would be able to loan you $199,000, for example. This program does have a maximum purchase price, which I think here it says it's for $447,000. We have recently asked for that number to be increased, but we have to go through a process where we ask the state and the state asks the federal government. And so we're waiting to hear back on if that maximum purchase price can be increased based on the current market value of homes in our area. We don't currently have this program in the town of Mammoth Lakes, but you can always check in with us because we're waiting to hear if we will get a grant for the program in the town hopefully shortly. This is a little more information about the below market rate ownership opportunities that we have in the town of Mammoth Lakes. These homes have been provided to the community at a reduced rate through private development mitigation requirements from the past, or a previous subsidy from the town of Mammoth Lakes to be able to provide these homes below market value. We have a little over 40 condominiums priced below market in Mammoth, and those range, actually, I just remembered, I believe we have one unit at 50% AMI. So we have units at all income levels, all the way up to 150% of the area median income. And here are the income levels just for your reference. For these homes, you can pair down payment assistance if you need it, and you income qualify for that program as well. But you can also buy them without down payment assistance if that's not something that you need. So we can talk more about that if you have questions about how we can combine or not combine programs depending on your needs. And then when you sign up for this program, you're really entering a contract with Mammoth Lakes Housing, but also with the community to say that because you benefited from this below market value, that when you sell the home, you agree that you'll sell it at a price that's affordable to the next person. And we have an agreement that outlines all the fine print regarding that. But it's really a way for our locals to achieve homeownership and be able to pay towards their mortgage and their equity, but also knowing that when it's time for them to sell, that they'll be selling the home at an affordable price to the next person. Oh, and here's some more information about that. There's some other requirements also, but if you're interested in that program, we can always talk more about it. I have a really cool video, but I can show you that later. Obviously, if you are interested in real estate, you've probably maybe already looked for properties already. One thing we always tell our clients is to make a list of things that you must have in your home. And then, but also make a list of things that you're willing to compromise on. So for me, I must have sunlight in my home, especially in the winter. So I'm not willing to compromise on that. But maybe having a garage, maybe I'm willing to compromise on that. So it's good to know where you're willing to compromise, because especially here in our region, you may not be able to get everything, all of your dream house ideals, you know, for the price that you can afford. And so it's just good to know where you're willing to give a little bit. You'll have to choose a real estate agent. Mammoth Lakes Housing is a real estate brokerage. Sometimes we can help our clients, but we're only 2 full-time people, so it's good to have a conversation about that. But we're also really happy to work with any of the real estate agents in the community. And then, you know, we have lots of types of houses in the region. We have lots of fixer-uppers. We have manufactured homes and mobile homes. There's some new construction, and then a lot of condos in Mammoth, right? So condos will have monthly HOA fees, and that is calculated into the affordability. You'll work with your agent to make an offer on the property that you decide that you would like to purchase, And then if it's accepted, you'll open escrow with an escrow company, which is a neutral third party that helps facilitate the sale, the documents, the money, the keys, and all of that goes with the process of buying a home. We always recommend to our clients to get a home inspection. And so as part of your purchase contract, there'll be some language that allows you to obtain a home inspection. And then your home inspector will give you a report that details any of the things that might be wrong with the property before you buy it. Your lender will require an appraisal, which will determine the fair market value of the home and make sure that they're not lending you more money than what the home is worth. And then you'll need to work with an insurance company to get a homeowner's insurance policy. When you're ready to close escrow, you'll go to the escrow company to sign your documents. Make sure you read everything and understand everything before you sign. It's good to read them in advance of your appointment to sign if you can. And then you'll have to pay some escrow fees. I usually estimate that they're about 3% of the purchase price. Sometimes they're a little bit less, sometimes they're a little bit more, but that's a cost in addition to the purchase of the home. If you participate in our programs, we always require that you complete a homebuyer's education course. And if you're a first-time home buyer, your lender will probably require it as well. And so we usually coordinate with your lender to make sure you don't have to take it twice and that everybody gets the copy of your certificate when you're done. It's good to think about the additional responsibilities that you'll have as a homeowner, which are different than when you are a renter. So there's repairs and maintenance that now you'll be responsible for that before your landlord would fix or have to pay for. You'll have to pay for your homeowner's insurance, which is a cost that maybe you hadn't considered before. You might have to do yard work. Ooh. You'll have to pay your property taxes, which go towards other jurisdictions, such as the schools, the town, the county, the water district. You might have to pay for snow removal or do it yourself. And then you might have to pay for trash, which maybe you didn't have to pay before, just depending on where the home is that you decide to purchase. Here's a lot of things you might have to think about maintaining when you're a homeowner. Make sure your smoke detectors work. Make sure your appliances work. Make sure your siding isn't deteriorating or your roof. Make sure your chimney is being cleaned regularly if you have a fireplace. What else? Oh, you might, yeah, your water heater is a big one. If you have to replace your water heater, it can be expensive, but you want to make sure it's in good maintenance annually. So a lot of things to think about. Here are some resources, just quickly, but we have a lot of resources on our website. We have resources about your credit score, financial education. I can't even think, we have so many resources, but please don't hesitate to come by the office. We can point you to the right place. We can talk about our programs. We're here for you, so don't hesitate to contact us. Oh, here's a recap. You get pre-qualified. We actually have a list of lenders that are familiar with our programs, so stop by and grab that from us if you're not sure where to start. You can pick up a copy of our application. then we determine which programs you're eligible for. Then you can start working on your wish list for your home, get a real estate agent, move through the escrow process, and we're here for you every step of the way, pretty much. Here's our phone number and our website. You can contact me. I'm Patricia, and Diane is my colleague, and we're happy to work with you.
And so Patricia, Tom here. Can you tell everybody where you're located?
Yes, I didn't put our address here. We are located in Sherwin Plaza 3, which is the same plaza as Tied Up and the Tavern. And that's 587 Old Mammoth Road. We're on the first floor. We're here Monday through Friday.
Great. So we had a few questions. We have one here that says, what does the MLH first-time homebuyer program consist of? Can it help with issues that arise after purchasing a home that the buyer does not have experience with, like maintenance? I think you kind of discussed that a bit.
So yeah, let me say this. We have historically offered rehab loan programs. If you had some substantial rehabilitation your home needed, weatherization, repairs. We don't currently have that program available right now, but I guess I would suggest signing up for our newsletter, which always outlines all of our current programs.
Okay, and there's one additional question. What numbers can we expect in regards to home insurance?
That's a good question, and I think there's a lot of conversations going on around homeowners insurance right now, especially, you know, in light of all of the fires. I guess, let's see, I think I would say it's probably, let me run a number real quick. I would say like on average, it's probably about $500 a year. For, let's say, like a condo priced around $450.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, great. There's no additional questions, but I did want to point out to everybody that, you know, right now, as Patricia stated, you know, there's the deed restricted home ownership units in town, about 40 or so, that they come on the market more than you would expect. So I think the most important thing I think you guys should know, if you're interested in those deed restricted, which, you know, is going to be your best opportunity for an affordable home, is to get in and see Patricia and get on the waiting list. And it's on a first come, first served basis. It's not that deep at the moment, Patricia, right? Is it 6 or so people, or?
Yeah, I think there's about 7 households, but we separate them by income level. So depending on your income, there might be 3 people ahead of you.
Yeah. And then, so what I wanted to also bring to everybody's attention is there's this development going on, starting this next, well, actually they started tree clearing in the parcel in the middle of town there, behind Center Street and Chaparral Tavern. There's a 25-acre site that's going to be developed as affordable housing. And it's going to be a mix of units. There's going to be rental units, and there's also going to be home ownership units within that development. And there's 2 phases that they're intending to be for sale. And there's going to be another 71 units proposed to be built for home ownership. In that property, they're going to start construction next spring on the first phase, which will be rentals. But there's talk that they might try to get the first set of townhomes for purchase in the next phase, and their goal is to deliver those deliver units every year. So they're expecting that they'll have the site built out in about 6 years from now. So there's going to be more units available, and so I just think it's important to get yourself in the game and get on the list with Patricia, because we're more likely Mammoth Housing is going to be brokering the purchase units for the developer, is what the preliminary conversations have been. So I think that's real important. I think everything too, if you're interested in becoming a homeowner, an easy way to is just to get one of those real estate apps, like Zillow is a great one, and real estate or realtor rather. And they, one, you can just start tracking the market rate of housing in the community, and you can filter and select your search criteria, and then just start following it and just make yourself aware of what the values are and how prices are changing. And the market's high right now, there's no question, but we've had ups and downs, and there's potential that things could go back down again at some point. So I just think it's important for your own education to be watching it, so that what's going on and what the market is. Clearly, the best affordable opportunity is going to be through a deed restricted unit, but there may be stuff that pops up here and there on lower price condos that you might find out that you can afford once you figure out working through your ability to get a mortgage. There's also some nice tools on those apps as well that you can kind of run numbers on your own as far as affordability ranges. There's calculators in there in the options that I think are real handy for people. So I just suggest that you maybe look at that if you haven't already done that. And yeah, and the other thing too, just from a personal investment standpoint, depending on what your situation is, I've known a few people who've actually bought homes outside of the community in other areas where they can afford it, and then they rent them out, but they build their equity, and then they flip them or they sell them and they realize a gain, and then they've grown their equity as a result, and they'll have more money, and maybe then they have enough money for a down payment for a home in our community, which is generally a little more expensive. So it's just it's creative ways you can do that, and I've seen some amazing leverage that people have done with things like that, and it can happen quicker than you expect. So it definitely takes some getting creative, but you might come from a community before you came to Mammoth that maybe it's more affordable, and you might go, hey, I could actually afford to buy a place there, and there's different ways you can do things, and with all the Airbnb, other ways that you can create rental properties and stuff like that, there's a lot of different strategies you can look at to try to leverage your money and grow your down payment over time. So anyway, Patricia, really appreciate your time tonight. It was a really informative presentation. Is this presentation available on the website, on your website, or can people get a hold of it if they would like?
Yeah, I can share it with you, Tom, if you want to send it out, and I can put it on the website. I won't get to it tonight, but I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay, well, that's really all we have for tonight. We're just coming up right on 7, so we ended right on time, and appreciate everybody joining us. And again, I'm more than happy to assist you if you have further questions after down anytime the next several days or weeks or months. Feel free to track me down at the main lodge, and I'm happy to talk to you. Okay, well, thank you, and we're going to have another basically a repeat presentation scheduled for 2 weeks from today on the 21st, and we'll do this again for anybody who would either want to watch again or invite a friend or suggest that they join next time around. That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. Obviously, we're here at Mammoth Housing as well, and so thank you for the opportunity, and I hope we get to meet you soon.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.